Okay, we're going to do a quick overview of your well pump and water treatment system. Components here. What you see here is your jet pump. The water table here is around 20 feet, so the around on this side, this is your intake pipe. So because the water table is so shallow, we can use a jet pump. You don't have to have a submerged pump. Let's come back around to this side. Here's your 110 power coming into the pump. On the back wall there, you've got a switch for when you're working on, if anyone's working on it, you can turn the pump on and off down here. There is, of course, also a circuit breaker upstairs. The pump output comes through this pipe down here, and then this tank is your chlorine solution tank. This is a mixture of 10% liquid chlorine, 1 gallon of that to 4 gallons of RO water. And we'll do a quick fill at the end of this video. Your chlorine solution is controlled by this controller here. Whenever the pump comes on, it's wired into the same switch, and the setting here is how many pumps per minute. I have it set to 50, which seems to give us a good balance of chlorine to clean water. The chlorine solution is injected in this pipe. This giant guy is your mixing tank. You want to have time for the chlorine solution to contact the water and remove all the sulfur smells and any organic materials out of the water. This is a baffled tank, and so it's actually equivalent to a 100-gallon mixing tank. This valve up here is very, very important if you drain the system for winter, or if you need to drain it for any reason. This lets air back in if you're draining water out of this tank. Without this valve, this is a fiber tank, and the water pressure and the air pressure would collapse the tank. Water in at the bottom, out at the top here, and you can see we have a T connection that goes off to our 40-gallon pressure tank. This tank right here, this water worker tank, ensures that the pump doesn't have to run every time you want to use water. It builds up pressure, and being on a T connection, it helps maintain a smoother pressure for the whole system. And then right here, you've got your pressure gauge. There are 2 adjustment screws in the back. I wouldn't suggest touching any of this with the power on. Those screws adjust your shut on and your shut off pressure, and there's a gauge hooked into that to show you those values. Let's move around on this side. Coming out of the T is another T, which goes to our drain valve. And you'll notice there's also a drain valve on the floor out of the mixing tank. So if you want to totally drain the system, you turn the pump off upstairs at the breaker, open these 2 valves, and everything will drain out. So our water comes out of our pressure tank here through this filter system to catch any big items that are left, and we've got a little valve here that back flushes that filter. Here's just an ordinary garden outlet. There's a lot you can use, what this is used for is to measure your chlorine level after the chlorine has had time to mix. You want a low level of chlorine, somewhere below 10 parts per million. That shows you that not all the chlorine's getting burned up while it's treating the water. Your water comes into your carbon filter. This filter is very important. This takes the chlorine back, any remaining chlorine, back out of the water before it goes into this pipe and enters the household system. So here's a master valve here to shut off water to the whole house. This valve goes to, this needs to be turned off. There's a crack in the pipe somewhere. This pipe goes out to a front faucet that we have never used. We use the faucet back by the shower. Your carbon tank, this is our activated carbon. Like I said, it takes the chlorine out of the system. This head here is set to run a backflush, a real short backflush at 2 a.m. every night, and it also puts some compressed air in the system to do some additional filtering, helps filter the water. We've got all of the manuals for, we've got manuals for the chlorine pump, for the head on the carbon tank. Right here. And the whole chlorine pump setup. We will leave these over on the table right there. And just a quick note here. Here's your new 40-gallon 4,500 watt water heater. That's the exact same specs of the old heater that came out. Got your 220 input, of course, breaker upstairs. Anytime you turn the water system off, you also want to turn this off so the tank doesn't overheat. This is your cold water in, comes off the house feed, hot water out. This hose supplies hot water to the upstairs. These splits that come off of here, the downstairs room was built after the house, so they had to add these splits in to get water into the downstairs rooms. Okay, I'm not going to show the whole process, but what we've got here, like I said, we've got a gallon of HTH liquid chlorinator. I would suggest using, it doesn't have to be HTH, but I would suggest using pool liquid chlorinator, not Clorox bleach. This is stronger. It doesn't have any of the added chemicals that household bleach has. And what we do is, got the cap off the solution tank, got the chlorine opened up, and I would strongly suggest wearing gloves because, like I said, this is 10% chlorine. It will sting and damage your skin if you get any on you. So we're just going to, I put this gallon in first. Okay, we've added that gallon, and I don't know why this is out of focus. We've got our 4 gallons of RO water, not household water. You want the water going in here to be as clean as possible, because otherwise you'll be burning up some of your chlorine before it gets to mix with the well water. And I put the chlorine in first, and then add the RO water to help mix the agitation of the 4 gallons of water in will help mix up all your chlorine solution. All right, we've added the 4 gallons of RO water, and you can see we've got 10 gallons of solution. I do this is about once every weekend. When the solution level gets down below 5 gallons, you want to fill it up again, because you don't want this. If this pump starts sucking air, it takes a lot of pressure to inject the chlorine into the line that's coming out of that jet pump. That jet pump is very strong. It's 70, maybe 80 pounds per pressure. So it takes a good strong pressure to get this chlorine into the system. You don't want to see any air bubbles in here. There's instructions in the manual. If you do see air bubbles, this pump will start making a very loud metallic sound because there's no liquid in it. You open up this valve until you see it, until it's primed the pump, and you'll see the liquid coming out of this tube. Then you tighten this back down, and then it'll start injecting the chlorine again. So let's put the cover back on. And then what I usually do after doing that is I will back flush the filter until the pump comes on. And there we go. This, as you can see, is set to 50. If I would change that now, as long as it takes about 5 to 10 seconds of running time, and it will save the new setting. You can turn it off, you can set it, make all kinds of settings, but this is the normal sound you want to hear out of this injection pump. Alright, we're at the end of the fill cycle, and you can see the gauge is getting close to 60. The pump should shut off somewhere around 60 psi. A lot of people would say you should only run it up to 50, but I like to have a strong shower. There we go. Pump is off. If the pump starts, that was a long run, and that is to get this pressure tank filled up. If your pump starts coming on all the time, like almost every time you use water, that means the bladder has gone bad in this tank, and it'll be time to get a new one. This is a wear item, but this tank is new. It's maybe only, well, it's 5 years old. So it should, being inside, it should have a good long life ahead of it. And just one last time, we should have chlorine out of here. After it goes through this carbon tank, upstairs, simple pool test, strip test is all you need. You should not see any chlorine if you test on the household faucets. And that is your water system.